The Doom Scrolls is a joke. It's a podcast. Nothing I say should be taken seriously. Viewers are advised to watch something else. Find a safe space. Just basically click the little X at the top of your screen, close this down, and move along. You don't want to watch this, trust me. We ask that you don't finish an episode. This is the Doom Scrolls. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? It's been a minute. It's been a few weeks, actually. Probably 2 weeks today, I think. And I guess I've just tend to my personal life, have a good time out there. So got some music here. Some music from Ed Chronologic. He's a music producer. He's a cool guy that I work with at one of my jobs. Anyway, I'm Chris. This is the Doom Scrolls again. Kind of been just kind of studying and learning and going through some things recently, and I figured it's time I do another episode of my Doom Scrolls here. I've been shopping around for people to come on the show, kind of meeting new people, getting to know some new personalities out there, and I met some really cool cats out there. Still working on finding a studio space. Still trying to get stuff going as far as that goes. But as life goes, there's always bills to pay. There's always fucking shit coming up. So it'll come when it comes. I'm not really worried about it. I'm trying to take care of it. I'm trying to make it happen. But as far as when it's gonna happen, I'm not sure. I thought it would have been done with around February, but it's now coming to be the middle of February, so I'm not sure what's gonna happen with that just yet. I know when the time does come, and I already have a few people that want to, do an episode and just talk about what they feel like talking about with me, and that's pretty much where things are gonna, go in the future. But right now, it's just me talking about what I want to talk about. And what comes to mind lately is the kind of person I've always been since I was a really young kid. Was like somebody who wants to know why things are how they are. Somebody who wants answers. And not just, that's just how it is, or that's the way thing goes. That's the way things are. Those aren't sufficient answers for me, because I think as human beings we're supposed to try harder and strive for a better life for everybody, for us and everybody around. And this all really kind of goes back to I remember when I was a kid, and then I would study like the kinds of things that we were eating here in my family, the kinds of food that was at the dinner table, right? I remember studying like, what goes into like bologna and what goes into hot dogs and what goes into these foods that we're eating every day, and coming home and talking to my mom about these things and being like, hey, do you know what's in that? Do you know what's in that food? Like, it's disgusting, right? You wouldn't want to eat it if you knew what was in it, right? That's the kind of person that I think most people kind of avoid those conversations, but those are the most fascinating conversations for me. And I just remember the response being, I just want to eat. Like, just don't get into that with me. I just want to eat. I'm hungry and I'm tired and I've been working and I just want to eat. And I get the sentiment now that I'm older and I work all the time. There's times when, as bad as I know the things I'm ingesting are, I just want to eat, right? But it's getting to a point where, like, it's frustrating me and it's really bothering me that that society is how it is, Like, I honestly just want to eat. I just want to live. I just want to have a good time. I just want to go about my life. But honestly, the way this life is made is kind of, it's really getting to me. And I know that people are smart enough to understand that life is tough for everybody. The people in charge, life is tough for the people that are trying to help other people. But I don't think that's any reason sit by idly and allow things to be insufficient, or allow things to be, you know, I don't know the correct word here, but this goes a little bit beyond food sometimes. It goes further than just food. It really starts it's really deeper than just the food. But it started with food for me recently. I had seen that old post about sandwich. The lady had seen the ice cream sandwich sitting in the lawn that some kid had dropped somewhere. I think this was an Australian story, but people in it checks out here in the United States also. I think it was like a Walmart brand ice cream sandwich, and the lady saw it out in the middle of the grass, and a couple days goes by, and she sees the sandwich still sitting there, but not like melted. The insects didn't even care about the sandwich, right? Which is a really bad sign. Um, so recently, a guy had posted a video talking about how he left the sandwich out on his table and he walked away and didn't really remember, didn't think of it. Came back a couple hours later and the sandwich was still sitting there intact, not melted, which is really weird. Because back in my day, I'm turning into one of those old men who's like, back in my day. But back in my day, the ice cream sandwiches used to melt, right? Ice cream's supposed to melt. Cream is supposed to melt. Flies are supposed to be attracted to food. Bugs, but it's easier, and I'm tired, and I just want to eat, right? I just want my kids to be fed. I'm tired. I just want to make sure they eat something today. That's the idea behind it all, and it's easy to understand because we've all been we've all been at that point after work or after school where we just want to get something inside of us and we're hungry. But that's kind of how life is lately in all aspects of life, and it there's a miseducation of society. There are masses of people walking around thinking that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with eating these kinds of foods. Um, it's all we have. It's too hard to do better. And in all actualities, like it's pretty much has been engineered this way to it is kind of harder to eat better nowadays. Well, we have this concept of the food desert where in certain parts of cities you have to walk many miles to get to actual healthy non-GMO, foods that are not covered in preservatives. If you want to eat these good foods, you have to travel to good neighborhoods where they have good grocery stores. But in my case, so I work in Helotes, Texas, and I work out there, and the closest thing to me is the corner stores that are right around my job. And then now there's a Walmart down the way, but I have a 30-minute break and I'm usually tired because I work in a warehouse. I work a physically strenuous job, lifting all day, sweating. I'm tired. My muscles are sore. When I'm on my break, I kind of just want to sit in the break room and eat my food and go back to work and get it done. And again, there's that. I'm tired. You know, Society is fucking tired, and a lot of people are so tired that there's really no reason to talk out about this. There's no incentive to speak out because it's going to cost too much energy to change these things, right? And I think that's what certain people are counting on. I think that's what the people who have set things up to be this way are counting on, is that yes, people are tired. It's too hard to change the way things work. It's too hard for any one man or any small group of people to change how these corporations govern our lifestyles, which is really what's going on. And um and it sucks. And I wish that during my lunch break, I could have really nice fresh, things to eat that are healthy sitting there in my lunchbox ready to go. But I work two jobs. I work two jobs. I work two jobs just to pay debts, and I work two jobs just to pay bills and take care of my daughter, take care of myself, and have money to take care of the people around me and help the people around me that need help, and to be able to buy new clothes and take care of my car and pay my insurance and do all these things, right? And at the end of it all, I'm just tired, right? That's what happens. That's how it's engineered. That's what the powers in charge want it to feel like for us. Because if they didn't, well, prices would be lower, things would be more accessible. And if you look at what's closest to all of us, there's always a corner store or a gas station right around all of us. And they're filled up with sodas, and they're filled up with Gatorades, they're filled up with beer, they're filled up with, you know, potato chips and, bags of chips and candy and gums and fucking candy bars and these sweet breads and these things that are just covered in preservatives, covered in these things that are for sure bad for our bodies, that lead to health declines for most of us. And if you look at other countries, if you look at like Mexico, they have people who farm for their food. They have people who create these little markets in different areas. They eat real food. And if people think that like people come from other countries here to live our lifestyle, to take from us, to take food out of our mouths, like that's really not the case. People come to this country because it's financially doing somewhat better than other countries, but they know when they come here that our food is toxic, that our food is disgusting, that our food is dangerous. They know when they come here that our food is not actually as healthy as the food that they ate before they came here to this country. I think that that's a well-known thing. I think that foreigners know that our food is not good for us. I think that foreigners know that Americans are just inherently, we're unhealthy, overweight. We have high blood pressure. We have many health issues that other countries aren't having. We have a number of cancers that tower over the statistics of the cancers of the other countries around us, and it's pretty scary. Um, but I think America is living in a pool of its own miseducation. In other words, we're just swimming. We're swimming in a lifestyle that's built by the school system. Like our kids are growing up dumb. Our kids are growing up to be these hive workers. Our kids are being taught, and it's very deep. It comes very deep. You have the health issues, right? You have the nutrition, you have the education system, and all of this stems from capitalism. Really, all of this stems from capitalism, right? So if you look at our educational system, right, I believe our education system was a product of John Rockefeller. Basically wanted to create worker bees for the corporations, the factories that he owned, right? So I think the idea was to take away children's individuality and take away children's creativity and take away children's critical thinking abilities, and to pile them all in this room and to basically bombard them with subjects that fill their minds, but at the same time these subjects and the way we're teaching them these things is creating a systematic, follow the rules kind of a child. We're creating these children that are supposed to follow rules. We have time limits. We have places we're supposed to be. You have a classroom number. We've you know basically what we've done is we've dehumanized our children. We've turned them into these worker drones to the very point where even the most basic human need is turned into like a permission. Like, I need to go to the bathroom, can I have permission to go to the bathroom? And if they're if the class is too busy or the teacher doesn't want them to, that kind of imagine what that does to a kid who has to go to the bathroom, right? That takes a psychological toll on a kid. And I believe that asking for permission just to use the bathroom in itself has the ability to turn a child into somewhat of a liar, you know, because now I have to have the best line for a few minutes, right? Or I have an anxiety and I don't have anybody to really talk to about it because there's 25, 30 people in a class and just, and if you could just imagine the emotional toll it has on a teacher to be in that kind of environment. And most people think that, since I want to say like 1850, I believe. I've done some research about the public school system. You know, you always had that teacher lady in the city, and if you watch like old Western movies or old stories about, you know, colonization time, the times when we were colonizing different states, it was always that one person who just had the passion to teach the children, right? Now it's people who need a job, who go to college, who kind of want to teach, but aren't really aware of the structure of a school and a classroom. And I think when they learn how it works to teach children, it's a little demoralizing. I heard a quote that's a teacher had said that in these teachers break lounges, they're not talking about the theory of teaching children. They're literally talking about how they don't want to be at work, how they don't want to. It's basically like any other job where you don't want to really be there, but you're doing it to try to get in and get out. And that's consistently how children's school break rooms sound. It's not like they're sitting in there trying to help all the kids and theorizing how they can best help the children, because these school boards have all the power. The centralized power structure is a big part of the issue here. The centralized power structure of the grocery stores, the centralized power structure of the school system, and it goes even further than that. And it works like that across the board, from your house to the government. You know, but we're talking about the school system. We're talking about people teaching these subjects to kids to shape their minds. We're not really trying to expand a child's mind, which should be the goal. The goal should be to create create a magnifying glass, right? That magnifies the gifts of this child. But what we're trying to do is, here's a structure, here's assignments, and here's your workload. Who's the best at doing this? We're trying to find, and we're grading them the way we grade chickens in a farm, right? Grade A, B, C, D. And we're basically dehumanizing the children day by day, year by year, right? Elementary school, middle school, high school, and then we take it even further into college. So the people that end up in college are the people that have been strong in the system, the people who have found out how to work the system, who have no issue, following authority. And the ones that didn't end up in college, the ones that didn't end up in high school, the ones that didn't end up finishing their lower grades, right? They're demoralized. They feel like they're not good enough. They're out here working menial jobs, walking around feeling like they don't have gifts because somebody told them they don't have gifts, right? We're telling these children that, if you didn't finish high school, you're not good enough to go to college. And if you didn't finish college, you're not good enough to create anything, or you're not good enough to make enough money to live a life, to be happy in life. But in essence, like, a lot of the people who ended up very successful in life that didn't finish college, they were encouraged by somebody. They had a gift, and that gift was magnified by somebody in society. Somebody might have seen what they had and told them that they were going to be, special. Somebody encouraged them to push further in their craft, and it could be a writer or a musician, or it could be, somebody who writes poetry, or somebody who creates art, or somebody who makes clothing, somebody who cuts hair, somebody who does tattoos, right? Somebody who works on cars, somebody who who has the passion to fix computers, somebody who's just a creative mind type. And these creative minds are not important in the school system, not in the way you would think. Where have you seen a creative kid in school who is like a super genius at drawing or super genius at math? They give them praise, right? But these other niches that have big places in the world, big, like these other niche, crafts and skills that have a big part in society, the school system isn't going to be like, we want you to do this, and we want to help further you, and we want you. They just kind of make you feel like you don't belong. So I would argue that critical thinking in the school system is something that is very detrimental to the way the system itself works. And I think that that's daunting. That's a sad thing to think about. And when you take away children's critical thinking, you're basically turning them into a slave. You're basically turning them into drones, because by the time these kids get out of high school, they're working and they're living in the system. And you tell them you have to pay taxes, and they don't even think that there was a time where taxes wasn't even a natural part of life, and it has been for hundreds of years. But the way people are taxed today is ridiculous. Like, you pay for something that you buy, you get a job, you make money, you have to pay a tax on something that you've already paid money to have. You have to pay a tax on your home. You have to pay taxes on your paycheck. Then you take that money home and you go to the store and you pay taxes on the things that you're buying with the money that you already were taxed for. And a lot of people don't realize that this isn't always how it was. And a lot of people don't realize that we have the ability to change these things. But we've been going to class in these groups. We've been going to class in these groups for a long time. You have to be in class 101. You have to be in class 102. You have to be in your place. And if you're not in your place, we take you and detain you, and we put you in detention, and you're reprimanded. And now you have to try harder to get back into the system. So we're giving people this like fear of being taken out of the system, because when they get back put into the system, now they have to work even harder, right? Um, and we extend our grasp from the school itself into the child's daily life. Now you have to go home and do homework, right? You can't even just kind of go home and be with your family, and your parents are too tired, right? Your parents are too tired to teach you anyway, right? So it's hard. It's hard to teach these kids the lessons that we learn, and the greatest lessons of yesterday. To be able to teach a child, it's hard, because now that kid is already too tired, right? That kid's too tired. That kid just wants to eat. He just wants to eat whatever's available. And if a kid had a passion to find out what was healthy enough for his body, which most kids don't care, right? Because they're busy being children. Because that's not on the kids. That's on the adults. But the adults don't really tend to go the extra mile to try to teach the kid that, hey, you should be wanting something healthy. You should want the healthy choice. And yeah, the healthy choice isn't always the one that you desire the most. That's in most aspects of life. Dating, whatever you do with your time, food, right? The healthiest choice is really sometimes the choice that you don't want to do, because it takes extra time out of your life, and we're already tired, right? So this frustration extends further out from eating and the school system. But back on the school system, there are certain aspects of the public school system that are just frustrating. And, you put a kid in a room with fluorescent lighting, you put them in a small box with fluorescent lighting, you give them, a structured, assignment based, set of work to do. and you're not teaching them about abstract ideas. You're not teaching them about the actual future they're going to get into. You're basically teaching them math, science, social studies, history, right? You're not really teaching them about what they're going to have to deal with when they get out into the real world. And there might be small aspects of that, but oh, time is up, right? Or oh, we finished that hour, we have to move on to the next assignment. So you can't really get a kid as passionate about the most important things in life as we should be getting them. You know, if you look at these great thinkers who had these students that became great men in the world in history, they sat down with the person. They got to know the kid. They got to feel this kid's passions. The kid would ask his teacher questions, but nowadays you don't even have that. Like, you hardly have the ability to ask your teacher questions that interest you because there's 30 other people in a class, and there's a sense of ridicule, and there's a sense of embarrassment, and there's a sense of you know I don't want to be the only one to speak out. When you're a child, if you had a bunch of questions to ask a teacher, on some level you might feel like everybody else thought you were dumb for asking these questions. And these are things that I actually dealt with in school. I wanted to ask an intense amount of questions in school, but a lot of people would think like, oh well, he's asking so many questions, he might be like a dumb kid, or he might not understand what is exactly, what he's exactly thinking about. Or having too many questions is not something to be ashamed of. Having too many questions is not something that should be shunned out of society's order. Having too many questions itself is a virtue. Having too many questions is something that we should applaud, you know? Um, and I think these are things that we forget because we're living in this systematic world. We're living in these boxes that are compartmentalized, and we're put aside, and we're given these classroom numbers, and we're giving these places, and we're supposed to be in our place. We're supposed to go by our assigned seating. We're supposed to go by our, if I wanted to sit with somebody who inspired me to be smarter, maybe that system would help inspire the people around us to be smarter, right? But no, you have to sit in an order in which we've decided. There's all this weird systematic, I call it dehumanization. It's a dehumanization process that we're put in for what I want to say 16, 17 years of our lives. And it teaches us to join the dehumanization process that is the workforce that most adults are working in nowadays. And a lot of people think this is just always how it's been, but it hasn't always been this way. Now, if you look at, and this guy's a really polarizing figure. You look at Henry Ford, right? The owner of the the Ford Vehicle Corporation. Now, Henry Ford created the 8-hour workday, and he wanted people to have 8 hours of work so they can go home and have 8 hours with their family and 8 hours of sleep. And a lot of people say that that he was a caring boss, that he really did care about his employees, that he wanted his employees who live good moral lives to make good, loyal, wages, honest work for honest pay, is what people think that he was about. But in my opinion, he was just somebody who was trying to maximize profits and make a job a centralized point of a person's life. And I think like having a purpose is very important, but that purpose is already stolen from us when we're finished with the school system. And I know that's a really, controversial take, but we're not teaching kids what their purpose is. We're not teaching them to search for their purpose when they're in the public school system. There's no inspiration sitting in a fucking box with fluorescent lights above and no windows. And if you did have windows, it might be on one side of the class, but keep your head straight, right? Keep your head looking at the board. Make sure you keep your head on your book. We only have an hour's worth of time, for this subject. Or we have to switch classes. You got to go to your next designated class. So you have to study, focus. So by the time you're done with class, you're tired. So the beginning parts of a kid's day is when he's most able to be inspired by the world around him. So I would say that teaching children in a setting where they could be inspired would be important, right? and allowing children to find the subjects that they want to find it would be an important aspect of helping a child reach his maximum potential. And I wasn't exactly raised by the public school system because at some point I opted out. But when I decided to not go to school anymore, like I decided to learn things that I wanted to learn about, right? I decided to read the literature, and I decided to read things that were going to teach me something important because I knew that studying some of the subjects that they studied in school wasn't really going to help me get along in life. And that's not to say that I'm living the greatest life now, because I've made some mistakes with drugs and alcohol in the past. Um, but I would say that I felt so dehumanized from the school system and from how hard my family had to work and how being alone for a long time made me feel, and being shunned by society and not being a part of that system itself made me feel like I wasn't a deserving individual of anything. So my idea of humanity, of my own humanity itself, was in question. I didn't even know if I was a good enough person, because not fitting in school made me feel like I was nobody. Not fitting in school made me feel, right, like I couldn't fit in with friends or family. And to a certain extent today I kind of still have residual, feelings on those ideas. But I would say inspiring a kid, or finding out, like asking the kid what inspires that kid, is a very important thing to do for a child. That's why I think homeschooling is probably, when you say homeschooling, I really think like a parent who has a passion for their kid's education is probably a better parent than somebody who just sends their kid to a stranger for 8 hours a day, right? And we trust our kids in the school system with these people who we have no idea who they really are. We don't know who the school board people are. We don't know who's above them. We only know that legislature and our central, like our local government, has a say in structuring these things, and we trust, right? We trust these people with our children for several hours a day while we're at work, completely out of sight from where our children are and what they're learning. So obviously, when your kid comes home, you say, "What did you learn today? How was your day?" And there's only so much they can say. There's only so much they can say because they're children who are learning, right? They can't say that they're learning something that's probably unnecessary for their future. They're not going to say that they're learning something that seems like they can't trust it or that they don't understand it. It's going to be hard for your kid to tell you that he's having, issues with the learning process, right? So being in your kid's life while their formative years are there is a very important aspect of raising a child who can actually, I want to say a great child who can actually help the society around him. Because if we're just creating these worker bees, right, we're just creating these people who know how to be in a system and work in the structure that's already predetermined for them. They're just going to be somebody who goes along with the process, right? It's just going to be somebody who eats the ice cream sandwich that doesn't melt, right? It's just going to be somebody who eats the food covered in preservatives that hits the corner store on the way to work and then goes to work and then hits the McDonald's on the way home and then goes back to the corner store for some snacks before they go home for bed and then goes home and sleeps and then wakes up and does it all over again. You're just raising a kid who's doing that. But if we raise a child to have critical thinking abilities, right, then now we're raising kids who raise the questions about, we should unionize these jobs. We should have more rights for the workers. We should have more rights for, we should have more civil rights that make more sense to protect people from other people, from government, right? We should question our government. We should question authority. We should, there are ways to create these children, but we're not doing it. And we're not doing it because the system decided that we shouldn't create these children. There are men who decided that, we don't want those kids to ask questions. And we're falling into this trap and we're willingly just going along with it because we're tired, right? Because we have health issues and we have bills and our finances and we're hungry and we're sleepy and we're tired, and this has been engineered to be this way. This is just how it is. And the sad thing is Rarely do people want to talk out about it. And then the people that do want to talk out about it are ignored by society because of the same reasons. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I just want to get through the day. I have so much work to do. You know, I don't want to have to deal with this. It's too much for me. I can't think about this. It's going to ruin I'm going to get a headache, blah, blah, blah. And that's one of the things that I would deal with as a child. My mom would be like, I don't want to talk about this. I'm going to have a headache, right? When I try to raise questions about society or her parenting style. And it's not, and it's nothing. I don't have anything against her. It's just that, like, right, parents didn't have a rule book for how to raise their children. So if you ask people about how they were raised and you go further back down the line, you're going to get more and more horror stories. Now it's going to get better and better because we have social media to tell us how to be somewhat normal, how to be integrated into society somewhat. So it gets better the further, the closer to modern days you get. But if you question back into your timeline, it would be worse and worse and worse. There'd be kids working labor jobs. Not enough time to think critically. You got to eat tonight. Now that feeling was in the children in the past, right? Now kids just want to live and be children, right? Well, we want our kids to be children. We want our kids to have better than what we had when we were their age. And thank God that we have the ability to do that. But now it's time to help shape the children's minds to be better thinkers, to be more critical thinkers. We're moving in a time. We're moving out of the old age, and this is a constant change that's happening. We're moving out of the old age. We're moving into the new age, right? And I want the children to be better off in the future. I want to be able to theorize and come up with ideas that are going to help our kids have a better future. I don't want my kids to be living in the same problems that I lived in. And I don't want my kids to be living in the same problems that my parents lived in, and so on and further back. And so a part of this comes, a part of the solution is going to come from getting into this fucking shit when you're hungry, getting into this shit when you're tired, getting into this shit when I do have a work week ahead of me. I have 2 jobs. Right? I have 2 jobs. I have to eat every day. I have to pay bills. I have to wash clothes. I have to shower. I got to get my head right. I got to have some kind of social life. I want to go have some drinks. I want to do some karaoke. I want to go dance. I want to do all these things. But there's still time to study why things are how they are and to theorize how things could get better. And I think a part of the way the new age is going to come is coming from technology. Me and my buddy were talking about how technology is somewhat detrimental to society, but I'm a part of the school that says that technology is going to further society at a faster pace, right? So when we look at meme culture, we have people sharing these memes, which are, sometimes just for goofs, for kicks, sometimes just bullshit memes. But we do have these memes that are like coming from like like an elevated level of thinking. We do have these memes that are like, why is society like this? And it sparks a change, and then we pass these memes, they go viral, right? A part of the way the future is going to change is by distributing these memes back and forth and doing things like podcasting and doing things like talking about the most important things at the times when we're most frustrated, because when we're most frustrated, talking about the important things is going to on some level be the catalyst to actually make the changes so we don't have to be frustrated like this again, right? And I think this is so important. I think that thinking critically and creating critical thinkers is the most important part of the future, right? Because we're doing half the job right now, but we have to figure out how to get the other half of the workload out of the way. And it's not, at some point it's not going to be in our hands. We're not going to be capable of doing this. We're going to have to create these critical thinkers, but we can't do it by sending them into a system that is already fucked up. And the system has to either collapse. The school system has to either somehow collapse completely. And I think that's the only way. I don't think there's another option. Honestly, I don't think there's another option. I think the public school system has to collapse. And I don't know how that's possible, because there's going to be a lot of children that need help being educated, right? Um, and I think a part of it has to do with capitalism itself, creating privatized schools that are somewhat of somewhat affordable by modern, like, regular people. And if you look at private schools and you look at how they create these stronger workers in the workforce, you look at people who went to private school and these guys end up becoming bosses. These guys end up becoming, above the people that went to the public schools. A part of that is they're being taught something that's not being taught in the public schools. They're probably being taught how to think critically. They're probably being focused on at a more one-on-one rate. They probably have tutors that can help them, people who look at them in their eyes and can see what they understand and don't understand. And a lot of this bleeds over into other parts of society that is very important to us as adults. I mean, a lot of these young people are going to be running the systems that we're living in when we're in our 40s and 50s, and they're in their 20s, and but there's what is it, subterfuge. There's a sense of a conspiratorial. It is really real. Like, the system is set up to fuck us in the end. And if you look at I want to say, there's a newspaper mogul from the late 1800s, and I forget the guy's name. Anyway, he created the idea of, he bought a newspaper and he saw people telling the truth as they saw it. He decided that he wanted to tell his truth alongside their truth. So he created a divide. And he realized that divide itself was very profitable, because now you have a large group you have people that have the truth, and you have people that have some opinion that doesn't quite match the truth, but it sells and it makes money, right? And now we have Fox News and we have CNN, right? And we have Apple and iPhone, right? We have black and white and Asian, Hispanic and Middle Eastern, and we have Jewish and Christian and Catholic, and we have all these different faiths, Muslim. We have people who are low class, middle class. We have people who are in the upper middle class. We have people who are in the the top 1%. We have all these different divides in life, and we have all these different divides that make it harder to commit to change. We have all these arguments started on every level of our society. And I believe that creating these divides in society comes from a lack of education. Because if people knew that we're all basically the same, right? We're all basically human beings. There's gay, there's straight, there's trans, there's all of these different aspects of what a human can be. But that doesn't mean that we're completely different people. That doesn't mean that I can't sit there with somebody who is a lesbian, or I can't sit there with somebody who's black, or somebody who's trans, or somebody who is richer than me, or somebody who is poorer than me, and that we can't come to a beneficial, mutual, idea that can help our kids and help society. And you know what I'm saying? And this all stems from that fucking ice cream sandwich. That ice cream sandwich really agitated me, and I want to say ever since the Ring of Fire eclipse happened, I just kind of want to talk about stuff that shouldn't be how it is. I don't like the divides between people. I don't like the fact that people don't recognize these divides. I don't like the fact that that the way society is structured is to accentuate these divides. Like, we see the divides more than we see the hope, and we see the divide more than we see some kind of solution in the future. So people think this is just how it's always been, but this isn't how it's always been. Like society is changing faster and faster every day, and the solutions to all of our problems are there. We just have to take the time to agree and to understand what the problem actually is, and then actually make the effort to actually put the solution in play. But we're too tired, right? We're exhausted. And I believe that that capitalism creates this. Capitalism does create this inability to change what's actually important to the people that are living in these fucking problems. You know, you create these ghettos, these lower inner city types of areas of the city, and those people thrive on, they need help from the government. So you have people voting that they want more help. You have other people voting that they want those people to get help, and you have people voting that, you know they want to put money in certain places in the world, but the money is just going to these places that's going to benefit the people that are in charge, and rarely does the money help these people in the inner cities. And sometimes you get these little systematic events where the people are helped a little bit, but they're still living in poverty, right? There's still people that are out there with sympathy for these people, trying to give money to these people, but they're giving it through other people, right? But so then that's where this next part of it all comes in. The people that are doers. We have the seekers of knowledge out there. We have the seekers of knowledge, and we have the people that are living in the problem, and we have the doers, the people that are gonna fucking get out there and fucking do the thing that they need to do to get the fucking problem settled. And then we have these authoritarian people who want the problem. Now there's people who are benefiting from the actual problem itself. So you look at poverty, right? You look at hungry people in the streets, you look at homelessness, and then you look at people who are willing to give them somewhere to relax and have and have a shower and eat. And these are usually, people of faith, churches, people who are into giving, people who are like these charity-based organizations. But you have to go through a lot of hoops in order to feed a homeless person. You can obviously go to one person and give them food and thank you, have a good day, right? But there are people who have tried to feed the homeless on a scale, that they could afford. Try to go take a bunch of sandwiches to some homeless people and see what happens when somebody notices. Like you're not certified to do that. And being certified and being qualified are two different things, right? In other words, right? I went through drug classes on my own. I put myself in Narcotics Anonymous. I don't call them classes, but I put myself in Narcotics Anonymous. Those are people who aren't certified that helped me get out of my drug problem. And now we have people who are qualified to help people get off of drugs, but those people tend to not do the job quite correctly. And I've had a lot of friends who went to rehabs. I've had friends who spent thousands of dollars, multiple stays in rehabs, who got out and just went right back to getting high. I went to Narcotics Anonymous for about 2 years, and in those 2 years, I lost the desire to use. I lost the desire to get high. I'm not a heroin addict anymore, although, I love heroin. I would do it again, but that's the problem. See, I know my limits. I'm not going to. But sending people to somebody who's certified isn't exactly somebody who's qualified to do the job. Teachers are certified, but not quite qualified to teach children on some level if they don't want to be there, if it's just a job for them. The people who are helping the homeless are probably certified, but not quite qualified to help the homeless, in other words. And that's a profound thought, I think. And I think that goes across the board. I met a person recently who is a therapist. No, I think she's a psychologist or I don't know, psychotherapist, psychologist, therapist. I know one can give therapy and one can give actual drugs to a person who needs the help. But I think she was a therapist, and I met her, and I started to talk to her about some traumatic stuff, right? And I could see that she was like having a reaction to what I was talking about. Like a not so good reaction, like it was bringing some kind of traumatic feelings out of herself. And that's not to say that she's not good at what she does, because I have no idea. I have no idea if she's good at what she does. I have no idea if she helps people or not. I couldn't say whether or not she could help people. All I would say was, from just my conversation with her, she got too emotional about what she had been through, and she shut me down. and she didn't want to talk about it. So I just imagine that if my success story, my my story of I'm no longer suicidal depressed, I'm no longer want to use drugs to hurt myself, I no longer chase after relationships, I'm no longer chasing after money or women or just drugs or sex or any of that shit, I'm literally just happy being me. It brought some kind of like guilt or trauma or feelings out of her where like she didn't want to continue the fucking goddamn conversation. And that's another one of those things where it's like I'm too tired. I want to have a drink. I want to go dance. I want to party. I'm too tired. I just want to eat the fucking food, Chris. I don't want to know what's in the hot dog. I don't want to know what's in the ice cream sandwich. And this is a person who is systematically brought up in the system to help people as a therapist who is too tired to talk about her passion itself. So it makes me just kind of question what's going on. And it makes me think that the people who are certified are not exactly the people who are absolutely qualified. And that is not an insult. That is not a fucking a dig. And in fact, like, she was a really nice lady. I've seen her once, and I talked to her again later on in social media. And I would love to talk to her about what we were talking about. Maybe I can get an understanding. I also have no business knowing. I have no right to have an understanding of her trauma or what she'd been through, right? But it raises a lot of questions, and like I said, I'm the one that asks questions. I fucking love to ask questions. I want to know why you can't talk about that, but you can help other people talk about their traumas, and what gives you the right to be able to question people. And I understand what it is. Like, you went to school, you went through the system, you've became certified to do what you're doing, but are you qualified to help other people? Can you even help yourself? Do you have help? Are you looking for help? Is there some way I can help? Is there, maybe what you're going through is something that you're going through because you don't realize that the value in yourself is way more than the value of what happened to you. And what happened to you is not invalid. It's just that you're focusing on it. And the problem that a lot of us have when it comes to depression is just we focus on the fucked up shit that we had been through, right? And I'm not an expert. The Doom Scrolls is a fucking joke. The Doom Scrolls is a podcast. If you don't like this shit, change the fucking. I beg you to turn this shit off. I ask that you fucking delete the link and don't listen to the show. But honestly, these are things that are important to me in life. These are things that I always think about when I'm working, when I'm talking to people who are hurt, when I'm looking at the poverty around us, when I'm going to eat lunch, when I'm going to eat dinner, when I'm tired, when I'm overworked, when I'm financially drained, when I'm financially, when I have money. These are things that I think about. All of this shit comes to mind. That we're in a system that's not really meant to help us as individuals. It's a system that's meant to keep the system structured, to give the system a foundation that we believe is important to society. And on some level it is, because without these systems we would be lost in so many different ways, right? But these systems hasn't always been this way. This isn't always how it is. This doesn't have to be how it always is. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to give drugs to people who are depressed. We need to figure out as individuals why they are, take the time to understand what they're going through and what decisions they make when they have these issues come up, and find out how to help them, and find out how to help them ask for help and find the help themselves. We need to find out how to help them sit down and do the work, because mostly a lot of this depression that people have nowadays, you can get out of it, but there's some required reading. Where we don't just have an hour for class. We don't just have an hour for therapy session, just 30 minutes for lunch. So I can't go buy good food for me. I have an hour for fucking of break. I only have an hour of free time. So I can't sit there and read the book that's going to help me get out of depression, right? And we're in this systematic, structured fucking situation that we can't fucking fathom living without. And that's what kind of fucking frustrates me nowadays. That's why I wanted to do an episode, because this is all tied into each other. It's all tied in. It is all tied in. And a big part of it all is, right, corporations and government. Which and religion. But that's an abstract idea that government and corporation trumps religion today, I think. And government and corporation is right now like it's the same fucking thing. They create laws to keep the structure and to keep the system in place. You can't feed a homeless person. You can't feed a group of homeless people if you wanted to. You would get ticketed. They'd say that you weren't certified to serve food, or you didn't have a proper food handler's certification, or that your food wasn't clean enough, that you didn't reach the sanitary conditions of being able to distribute food to people. There'd be a number of laws that they can use against people who were just trying to help somebody else. You know, um, if you had a passion for something but you didn't go through the legal system to try to create a business to help people, there would be a law to shut you down. So just think about that for a moment. Are these legal systems, are these structures of government here to help us? They're not. It's the Romans here to help Rome. It's the government here to help the government. It's these people who work for the government are only here to help that system. They're not really, and rarely are they here to help individuals that come to them for help. I would say that this is something that we've been taught since we were children to salute. You know, we're taught to say we're taught to give our allegiance to this from a really young age, and it's quite concerning for me. And when we get we're on right now, the doers, right? The doers of society. I met a really good person recently. I met a person who was somebody who I admire, I really adore, I really care about, and a lot of the reason why is because I'll talk about this from my perspective here first. I follow my spirit nowadays, right? My spirit tells me where I'm supposed to be and where I'm not supposed to be. Places I should be, I go because my spirit tells me that's where I feel way better about my life. That's where I'm happier. That's where I'm inspired. That's why I am. That's why I have the energy to do something like the Doom Scrolls. That's why I have energy to do 2 jobs and have a daughter and have my family and work my life and take care of myself. And my spirit is right now. I'm obedient to my spirit. And I know that sounds weird, but once you understand the concept of what your spirit is, you can't follow anything else. I'm not following a woman. I'm not following sex. I'm not following drugs. I'm not following, something to numb the pain. I'm really I'm going to be somewhere where my spirit is growing and I feel better about my life and I feel better about myself. And I know I'm supposed to be there because I know I'm helping people when I'm there. So like I'm really into I go do karaoke a lot, right? Because I'm a weirdo like that. I go sing a lot. And the other day I went to meet a friend at a bar, and that friend had a friend with her, and the friend that I was there with originally, we're cool, but her friend and me hit it off, and we spent multiple days together since then. We've spent a lot of time together since then, and getting to know her is it's an amazing thing, because I've been staying away from relationships for a few months. It's been over a year since I've been in my last relationship, and but I met this girl, and I can't quite put my finger on why, but we're really drawn to each other right now. And I guess, a lot of it is a physical attraction. A lot of it is because, I think she's a cool person. She thinks I'm a cool person. That's cool. We're both into karaoke. When I first met her, she went up on stage and did a song, and she kind of was a little weird and a little kooky and really into the song and put her spin on it. And that's kind of how I am when I do karaoke. Like I love karaoke. I can't live without it today. And that drew me towards her. And we got into contact immediately, and we started to really like to be around each other. And ever since the day we met, we kind of haven't been apart. But I come to find out that when I go to her place for the first time, right, she has like Bernie Sanders posters, Black Lives Matters posters. She has a poster with all the names of all the people that the police killed in traffic stops, like Trayvon Martin and George Floyd. She has posters that are very political. She has like Native American, stuff around her bedroom and around her living room. she's one of these people who recognizes the issues around her. And I always say, once you get out of the spirit box, right? The spirit box is something that, it's your traumas, it's your desires, it's your habits, it's your fears, it's the things that hold your spirit so small that you don't want to get out of bed in the morning. Once you learn how to find out how to get out of those problems, once you learn how to see past those things, and you see that life is actually beautiful, life is actually really a beautiful place to be in. Once you realize how to break down the walls of the spirit box, there are certain gifts and certain things in a human mind that can actually be unlocked. And a part of me thinks that the public school system, and the way capitalism works, right, and the way our food creates health issues in our bodies, and all of these things are meant to kind of solidify the spirit box around us. And I feel like once we break through the spirit box and we reach that ascension, when we reach our communication with our third eye, it's like an antenna, right? And people say, what do we have these prayer chains? I ask you to pray for me, and you ask that person and that person and that person and that person. Because somewhere along that prayer chain, in Christianity or Catholicism, somewhere along that prayer chain, there's somebody who's really connected to their spiritual energy and their higher power. And there's somebody who really can reach God for us. And I'm not a religious person, but I think that, I can understand the concept of when you're out of the spirit box and your spirit is big, you can actually connect to a frequency just like a radio does with an antenna. So that third eye is connected to that frequency. It reaches out, and your spirit can touch places before you even get there. People wonder, are you coming tonight? Are you going to be there? Because you make people happy here. Your spirits touched us, right? And another part of that is, like, I think we get the ability to somewhat have these psychic connections to people, or have these psychic abilities. And I'm not saying that's 100% true. I'm just saying that this is something that I feel like might be real, and that I think that this information is being suppressed from society, because we don't think abstractly like that anymore. We don't have that connection with our spiritual lives. Everybody has a spirit, but we're not taught about our spirit in the school system, right? We're not taught about our spirit. Our bosses, the corporations, the government, none of these people want us to know about our spirit. Because once you get a society of people who are in touch with their spirit, they could actually rise up and change things. And who doesn't want us to change things? You don't want us to change things. These are the people who are authority figures, right? So I would have just assumed that water in our fluoride that calcifies our pineal gland, that's another way to to keep us in our slave mentality. Okay. But when you connect to that, when you break through the spirit box, you start to tap into that frequency that actually touches people around you and magnetizes people towards you. So what I believe is that my spiritual energy and this person's spiritual energy kind of touched, and we met, as in some ways our energy met before we even met, and we both recognized it. And I'm just actually impressed by this person, because this person's very politically aware. This person is a vegan, which she doesn't want animals hurt so that she can enjoy herself, which is a really cool thing. I used to live my life as a vegan. I've done it off and on over the years. But to meet her while she's doing it right now is pretty impressive, and it's pretty inspiring. And all of her political views are really cool, because most people are too tired to care about how to about changing society. But I don't want to fuck with most people like that. You know what I mean? I don't want to fuck with people who are too tired to change what's going on around them. And I'm tired of fucking with people who are like, my relationship's not going so well, but I want to talk to you on the side. And I'm tired of talking to people who are married, and I'm tired of talking to people who are straight up in relationships. I'm gonna be straight up, because I've been single over the last year, and I meet married women, and I meet women who have boyfriends, and I meet women who are talking to multiple people at the same time, and they want me to compete with those people. And what can I give them? How can I impress them? I'm not gonna play that game anymore. I don't want to. So I've been on my own trying to take care of myself, and I met this person. It's great. And she also, not only is she a vegan who's very politically charged and tries to live her life the right way. um, there are even things that not to say that not to say that she would censor me when I would talk, but I have like a really fucked up personality as far as like my sense of humor, and certain things she would say like, you can't say that, and I'd be like, well, I have been. And honestly, like I say things as a joke. The doom scrolls is a joke. You know what I mean? But sometimes I might say things that are politically incorrect because I think it's funny, but she doesn't think that some of these things are funny, which is cool. Like I mean, that's cool. I think that's really commendable. Somebody who doesn't eat meat, somebody who's very political, somebody who, has control over what they say because they think it could harm other people. And one of the greatest things about her was she rescues dogs. She's a dog rescuer. She loves to rescue dogs. That's like one of her favorite things to do. So she said she rescued something like over 100 dogs in 2023 alone, which that's an amazing. If you just think of the logistics, if you just think of the logistics of saving 100 different dogs and finding rescues that will take them in to find them homes, and getting them rides out of the city and getting them rides out of state, and finding ways to get these animals homes, and somebody who's willing to do that, that's a fucking doer right there. That's the kind of person that I think society needs. Thousands more people like that, right? We need the doers out here. We don't need the ones that are just too tired. Like, yeah, those people are important too. But the people that are just too tired, that just want to eat, that just want to go to sleep, the people that just want to go to their job and go home and have a good time, yeah, sure, those are actual real people with valid feelings and intentions and hopes and dreams. And I love people like that every day. But the doers and the questioners and the people who are seeking the knowledge and the people who are trying to find a better way, those are the people that are going to fucking propel us into the future, that's going to make us not only comfortable but have more love and be more in touch with our spirits. And that's honestly the intent of the doom scrolls. The intent of the doom scrolls is, not to be a shock jock, not to be a podcast of, it's not a comedy podcast per se. There might be silly shit to be said sometimes. I might eventually have people on, and it might just be a huge joke. You'll know when that podcast comes, and you'll know when this podcast comes, and I'm being serious and I'm being for real about things. But to meet somebody who's rescuing animals, and then to find out that she's in a network of people who rescue animals, that's really cool to know that she rolls with the people that do that, and they're very passionate about that, to the point where sometimes they fucking argue with each other and get in fights. And it's interesting hearing about the drama. Maybe one day she'll sit around with me and tell me about the drama of rescuing dogs and about all the crazy men and women who are fighting and arguing about how to do it best. But it's interesting, and I think that being a part of the system and being able to see it all growing up, and being able to find out that not a lot of people are willing to do anything about it, it kind of just frustrated me to the point where, like, okay, I'm gonna fucking open my mouth. And I don't know if this episode is probably not everybody's cup of tea. To be honest, none of the episodes I've done are for any specific one person, but they are for the person that's willing to sit and listen, and they are for the person who wants to be with me and go on this little journey with me. And this is going to be something I do from now until I can't do it anymore. You know, and I'm going to raise questions, and I'm going to question society, and I'm going to question authority, and I'm going to question you know, they say we live in a patriarchy. They say we live in a matriarchy. Like we live in this but we live in this gynocentric society. We live in the society that's catering to men. We live in the society that's catering to women. You're not supposed to say that about women. You're not supposed to say that about anybody. You're not supposed to raise your like. I'm gonna fucking do it. I'm going to do it. Anytime I meet a friend who's suicidal, who's dating a woman who's really promiscuous, who's crossing the boundaries that he has set for her, who doesn't give a fuck, that's that guy's fault. But the fact is that nobody's told him that he's simping for somebody who's not treating him right. And I'm gonna talk out about shit like that, and that's kind of what set me on this path to begin with. I had friends who were suicidal over women who didn't give a fuck about them, because these women had multiple dudes on the horizon ready to come give them whatever they wanted, and these women look back at their past and I cared about that person, but look at the future I'm gonna have in front of me, and that's cool. I don't hate you for it. I don't dislike you for it. I'm not even mad at you. But on some level, I'm going to talk to this dude who's hurting himself, who wants to kill himself. I'm going to talk to somebody who's suicidal. I'm going to try to show them the light. And the light in that case is people don't give a fuck about sometimes love and what you've done for them once they see that somebody can do more for them. And these are the things that, like, you're not supposed to talk about that. You're supposed to just keep quiet about that. Hey, and I've actually been told by women, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you would say that. Yeah, women who use men for their resources and then just fuck off and go hang out with somebody else when that guy has nothing to give. Yeah, that's fucking evil. Yeah, okay, that's mean. Yes. That's not good for this guy. And then a lot of dudes will be like, well, he's asking for it and he's stupid and he doesn't understand. Yeah, that's the point. He doesn't understand. Yeah, that's the point. He's fucking asking for a world of pain. And that's what set me off on this path into the doom scrolls. And at first I kind of wanted to make this a TikTok scrolling, we're going to scroll through TikToks. We're going to scroll through YouTube videos. We're going to scroll through, and I still want to do that. Because that's very important. As a matter of fact, scrolling through those videos is going to be a part of the saving grace for society. I find a lot of hope in those videos. I find when I go through TikTok, I find people that are way smarter than me, that have way more ideas of these concepts than I do, like way stronger knowledge of these concepts than I do. And it kind of gives me more ideas, and it frustrates me and it pisses me off. There are things like police pullover videos and people who audit the government. Those videos really fucking put me in a bad way. Those videos make me really bitter. And I recently saw a video that said, don't let this bitterness get into you, because once bitterness touches you, you become as bitter as the person that showed you the bitterness, right? So I don't want to spread bitterness. I don't want to spread bitterness. I want to spread awareness. I want to always say that, like, if we're going to get into a subject that's going to make somebody bitter or make somebody angry, that's not the intent. The intent isn't to leave you feeling like angry at society. That I'm not trying to make you mad at yeah, I would say be mad at these corporations, be mad at the government, be mad at, these grocery chains, be mad at the fact that there's not healthy foods in your neighborhoods. Be mad at the fact that doctors only want to prescribe medication to people who are depressed because they want money. Be mad at these certain aspects of society, but don't be mad at your fellow human being, right? I mean, don't be mad at the cop that is working in the system. Don't be mad at the doctor that's, trying to make his money and try to do what he does. Just be mad at the system itself. I would say the systems, once the systems come down, systematically, you bring these systems down, these people find, it's like dropping water. They find ways to get to where they belong, They will find ways to do what they're supposed to do, or there will be people who are finding ways to take more advantage of other people. There's always going to be both sides of the coin out there. But we don't live life in fear. We live with hope. A life lived in fear is not a good life worth living, really, at all. Not a good life to live. But I don't do this to piss people off, and I'm not trying to do this to make anybody, feel turned off about any aspect of life. But I just think there are certain things we should talk about. I want more people to think about how we can inspire kids around us. I want more people to think about how we can inspire people who are sad around us. I want more people to think about how when you see somebody standing in a corner that doesn't look happy, I want you to go talk to that person. I want you to ask questions. And if you find out that that person's not willing to find actual solutions, and that person's, living in a loop of, I'm the victim and there's nothing that can be done for me, then okay, fine. You tried. Maybe give your advice, show an example of how to do better, and then, but don't lose yourself trying to do these things for sure. But try to help people who are sad. Try to inspire children to be what they want to be. There's nothing like, see, when I was suicidal and depressed and doing drugs and drinking and hating my life, the whole reason why was because, for one thing, I didn't have people that loved me and that I could talk to. But for another thing, one of the most important things of a human being, one of the most important aspects of a human being, spirit, mind, and body, there's also purpose. There's also the purpose. So when a person finds their purpose, I would say after they get financially able to take care of themselves, and after I would say that after somebody is financially able to take care of themselves, right? And after they're not in survival mode constantly. They're not constantly hungry. They're not living in the spirit box. People who are not chasing after desires, people who are happy with themselves, maybe people who are happy with their family, maybe people who are happy at their jobs, and people who have some free time that's beneficial to them. That's when they start to realize what their goddamn purpose was the whole time. Our purpose isn't to just pay bills and fucking work for this corporation. Our purpose isn't to just, get through the day and go to sleep for the next day. Our purpose has to be something deeper than that. And the way we find that is through inspiration. And what inspired me was, I found my way out of depression. I found my way out of drug addiction, and I had these people who gave me little pointers on what to do next along the way. But if I didn't have those people, I would still be stuck in it. I would still hate my life. I would still hate where I was at. And then I think it's really important to just keep trying to help people and keep trying to raise awareness and keep trying and have hope and spread hope. You know what I mean? Because there's no reason to be hopeless, and I know it feels that way sometimes. I know it feels like, we can't change the system because it's already been this way for so long. There's a sense of hopelessness, but there is hope out there. There are people doing what they can do to change little aspects of life every day, and it raises awareness, and more people see it, and these things go viral. In modern times, doing the right thing can go viral and change everything. And we don't realize it because it hasn't always been like this. And that's another one of those things. We're leaving the old age and we're coming into a new. This is just I'm going to add this in here because I think it's pretty cool. Some of the people that I met over the last few weeks have been very interesting people. I met a hip-hop artist who was into very political ideals and conspiracies, and he helped me with some of the music that I have now on the channel. I've purchased some music from him that I haven't actually paid for yet, but I will. Shout outs. And that's pretty interesting. I met a girl who wants to do podcasts, who was really into podcasting, and who had some family who has been through drug addiction and suicidal, idealization. And I met a guy who was in a rehab, who was in several rehabs, who did hardcore drugs, who has this really spiritual vibe, who is really into spirituality and metaphysics. And he's also somewhat schizophrenic, which is interesting to me. I think people who are schizophrenic are somehow touched because they have this ability to tap into all these thoughts at the same time and tie all this stuff together. And That's amazing. People who have these disabilities are very important. And I'll just get back into something real quick. As far as the education system goes, right? We look at kids, right? And we look at children in a school system setting, people who are in the school system, and we say this kid is too much for us and these kids are just right. What we're really saying is this kid is too much of an individual. These kids are fitting into the system perfectly, right? So this is where I fit in when I was a kid, right? They said that I had ADHD and that I had learning disabilities, that I was dyslexic, right? Which, fine. On some level, yeah, I guess, yeah, I might be dyslexic. But I was the first person I ever heard that was dyslexic in school. And now my nieces are dyslexic, my nephews are dyslexic. Everybody under the age of a certain, everybody under, 30 years old now is somewhat dyslexic or has a learning disability or autistic or something of the sorts. And these diagnoses came from the teachers telling the principals that these kids were too much, that these kids are too much to handle. And on some level, I started to look into this. And I was watching a news story a few weeks ago with my mom and dad. We were sitting there watching something about the news, about the school system. And they said something that they absolutely should not have said, but that I completely wrapped my head around immediately. They said that for every kid that has a learning disability, the public school system is paid slightly more to take care of that kid by the government, by taxes, right? So if you think about it, right, the school system is benefiting from labeling these children as dyslexic, from saying maybe this kid has some form of autism or hyper, this kid is hyperactive, has ADHD, this kid has issues, and they're getting paid more by the school board, who's getting more taxes for these children. So on some level, they have more incentive to say that these kids have learning disabilities and to put these kids in special classes and to set these kids back somewhat and to put these kids back in a system that's a system below a system, right? Because now you have kids going through the school system, but then you have kids in these learning disabled classes. And when these kids get out of school and these kids get out of school, you have people with different skill levels that went to the same school. And what they did to me when I was in elementary school was they said, this kid's too hyper. But what they didn't know was that my dad was beating me up at home. My dad was literally beating me up at home, being physical with me. And that whenever I would leave home and go to school, right, I would make a joke and make the kids around me laugh. So to me, that was like a reward system. I could make people at school laugh, but at home, I tend to only see grumpy, angry people who had to work and they just wanted to eat and they didn't want to deal with me. So the teacher only saw, the fact that there's a kid here who is a little bit out of control and wants attention and wants other people to laugh. The class clown, right? The smelly kid in class that, the parents neglect. The kid who wears the same clothes every day. But when he comes to class, he wants to make everybody laugh and he wants to be loud and noisy. And yeah, it would disrupt other kids because you have these kids who just want to get through the day and be in a system of learning, right? They want to finish class today. They want to go home. They don't want to be set back by this fucking kid who has problems at his house. So nobody has time to look into this. Nobody has time to actually ask the kid, like, what's going on. And if they did, on some level, it's wrong to ask the kid what's going on at home or to question parents, right? Teachers just want to go home, get their job done and go home. So principal sent my mom a summons. My mom goes to school. My mom talks to the principal with my dad. They tell my parents that he's too hyperactive. He has learning disabilities. He needs help. We need to put him in special classes. Okay, cool. Special classes. Boom. And then they say, there's this medication that you can give him that can get him to focus, that could set him, in the right place to be in class. And basically they gave me Ritalin. And Ritalin is a form of speed. They gave me a form of speed in elementary school. And I remember being in class and just being like completely zombified. Like I didn't have energy to move around a lot. but I was super focused on whatever they told me to focus on. So they kind of found a way to turn me into like a mini little zombie kid, and I was resentful of authority because of that. I was resentful of the fact that, yeah, I think they took my personality, but I don't quite know how to tell them that I know they did it. I think they took my individuality, but I don't quite know how to tell them that it fucking pisses me off, right? So acting out, not taking my medication, um, it put me on this path of, you're a problem child. You're somebody who doesn't follow authority. You're the problem. It's your fault. When really the fault lies on the people around that aren't willing to reach out and make changes that can help the child, help the class, help the people, and ask the right questions, because we don't value people who ask questions, right? And we don't value doers. We value these people who are on the outside, the people who are following the system, but the people who ask the questions and the people who are doing and the people who are trying to put more effort forward, they stand out. And what is the first rule of power in the 48 laws of power is never outshine the master. So if you're somebody who's trying to stand out to help these children, but you have the school board telling you you shouldn't, and you have your the principal at school telling you you shouldn't, you're the troublemaker now, right? So give the kid the Ritalin, have the kid take the pill, have him sit in the seat, and if he doesn't, it's on the kid. Now the kid's a troublemaker. Now the kid's a problem in class, and we don't know how to help him because none of us are willing to put any effort. So I was basically labeled, a troublemaker. And this is when I was an innocent kid. I was just an innocent kid who wanted to have a good, I wanted to be happy. I wanted a childhood, but nobody knew that, dad was crazy. Society fucked my dad over a lot. I'm not saying that that he had no way out, because he could have found help and he could have found it, but my dad was okay, I'll tell you the story. My dad was born because his dad raped my grandmother. So his dad raped my grandmother, created my father. So my grandmother already had 3 children. So when these 3 children see my father, they see a face, and me and my father are twins, basically. I look exactly like my dad. So when my grandmother sees this face on my father, she doesn't see somebody she loves. She sees somebody who did something traumatic to her, right? And imagine growing up with with your mother, not knowing who your father is, so you don't have nobody gives you these rites of passage to being a man. Nobody tells you you're a man. Everybody's just external to you, who you are as a person. Your brother and sister and your other brother know you as just somebody who's a part of the family, as a burden. Your mother knows you as, that's my kid who I couldn't, find a way to help him. I raise him like I raise the other kids, but the connection of love isn't exactly there. And maybe they formed it eventually, but I don't think so, because the way they interact is very cold, but they still are there for each other. It's just very cold. So imagine a dad having no love in his life, not a dad yet, he wasn't quite a dad yet, but having no love in his life, and then now he's a man with a body, a man with a body, right? My dad had a man's body. My dad was a man's man, and he would meet women, and these women would swoon over him, and these women would he's a sexual being. My dad was a really buff looking built guy, with my face, and probably had the ability to charm, because on some level people who are abused learn how to manipulate and use other people's emotions, because they're just so good at being the good person. They're just so good at, when you're being abused and when you don't have love, you know how to make it happen, because it doesn't come easily to you. So you have to make it happen, right? So my dad knew how to charm women, and my dad knew how to use women to get what he wanted, which was sex and affection. But my dad didn't quite know how to take care of these women. So he would have children, but not really know how to take care of the women or the kids. And he had a hard life. I'm not going to say he didn't. I'm just going to say that he took the easy way out of his feelings and drank a lot and abused a lot and was aggressive and had a lot of anger issues. So, having him as my dad Nobody gave him that "I love you, son." No, he didn't have grandparents be like, "You're such a good man. You're such a good boy. We love you so much. You should have this pride or this self-love for yourself because we are giving it to you." He grew up without that. So he grew up with anger and viciousness and aggression. And he took it out on the women around him. And he basically brought that into my family when I was born. I learned that, yeah, my dad's a violent, aggressive man. So on some level, I grew up that way, um, because when my dad left, right, my dad left the family. My mom was a single mom, and she had struggles that she had to live with, right. And so what I'm saying is, these people are just too busy. These people are just too busy to sit there and care for the kid that they made. And it's not because they don't want to, it's just because nobody really tells them how. Nobody really thinks deeply enough to show them that they should put the effort forward in these places. And nobody has a good um, theory of how to do that, right? And I think that if people were certified to do it, they wouldn't exactly be qualified to do it. So at the time, I guess when my mom and dad met, um, my mom had a disfigured jaw. My mom's jaw was like extended out to here, like my mom's jaw was broken because she went through a windshield when she was a teen, and I'm guessing she wasn't the prettiest girl in her 20s and in her teens, but when she met my dad was somebody who required affection, right? My dad was somebody who wanted love and affection because he didn't get that as a kid from his mom, and he didn't. He my dad was probably not the best looking guy. My dad was probably not the most classiest dressing, most well articulated. He probably wasn't the most hygienic, cool guy, And when you look at me, you see parts of my dad in me too today. But my mom and dad had this codependent need for each other that that I actually ended up inheriting as a young man. So in elementary school, right, when I met friends that were into my comedy stylings, if you would call it that, my class clowniness, it was usually kids like me who didn't have family at home, who wanted to have a laugh too, you know, who like I didn't really have parents to go home to impress with my schoolwork, so I didn't really give a fuck about my schoolwork. I kind of just cared about my friends. I want to get out of class and go hang out with my friends at lunch. I just want to kind of go home and hang out with my friends after school, which happened once in a while. But when I turned 13, forget about it. I started dating. I had sex with a 30-year-old lady when I was 13, 35-year-old lady when I was 13, which is crazy. It's a crazy story to tell. And people are like, "Well, you were sexually assaulted." Perhaps everybody says I was, but at the time I thought like, "No, I'm just charming. Like I made that happen." Right? I made it happen. Um, but I was starved for affection, and I met my first long term relationship at the age of 13, and that lasted for that lasted for over a decade, and yeah. But when it comes to like growing up in a system and these systematic events happening to you, you get lost in certain aspects that you never expected, and you end up becoming a person that you didn't know you would be. They gave me medication as a kid in elementary school, so when I first tried drugs, I liked the sensation of cocaine and weed and alcohol and heroin. And what did you know? I became addicted to speed in my 20s, right? Speedballs. It's a mix of heroin and cocaine. And that became my life for well over 20 years, from a young age up until my 30s. And I don't know that it all had to do with my hitting bottom and becoming who I am today, which I wouldn't change it today if I could, but I don't want people to go through that. I don't want kids to go through those things now, because because I was borderline, like I was hanging on the edge. I always wanted to end my life. I always wanted things to go south. I always wanted to die. Just flat out. Flat out, I hated my life and I wanted to kill myself when I was younger, up until my 30s. And that's no way for anybody to live, right? And that's a part of the reason why I got clean, because I don't want my daughter to have that. Um, we're not, me and her mom are not living together, but we're no longer in a codependent relationship. I'm not being violent towards her mother. I don't hate her mom. I actually love her. I want her to be happy so that my daughter was raised by a happy woman. And I think we broke those cycles. And I think we broke those cycles because I'm a seeker, because her mom is somebody who's seeking a better life than she had. I'm somebody who's seeking a better mindset than my dad had. And with each generation that comes, these things get better and better. But we have to have people around that can pose the question and create the theory of how do we do this? You know, how do we get past these cycles of violence? How do we get past these systematic cycles that just pretty much run like trains? These cycles of systems of the school system, the food corporations, the medical corporations, the government corporations in general, religious corporations, they kind of work as a train, and they run over these people. And as individuals, these people can't stop these trains. But you get a big enough group together, and you see a big enough group of people getting smushed by these trains, and somebody's gonna fucking stop these things. Somebody's gonna stop these trains. These systems are gonna come down eventually, and I think we're onto something by just spreading awareness, right? Um, but I have that. I have the idea. I have the. I want to say. I'm compelled to push forward and try, because I know how it is to get out of these things. You know, I don't have the same hate for myself my dad had for himself. Not today. I'm not trying to live in a codependent relationship like my mom and dad were when they had me and they were younger. I'm not doing that today. I'm looking for a love that's real. I'm looking for people who really want to be with me because they're in a good place and I'm in a good place, and we want to complement each other. You know, um, yeah, that's just something I wanted to add in there. And I feel bad for my father because he's still stuck in that. He still lives that life of he drinks away his feelings, and he drinks and he lives a lonely life. He sits there by himself. If I wanted to go talk to him today, I know which backyard to go to. I know which gate to open. I know where to go talk to him. But he's just very bitter, and I don't like that bitterness to seep into me, because me and him have the same face, and I honestly don't want to see myself wallowing the way he does. And giving up and being hopeless like he has been. And when I try to tell him, like, look, there's a better way, he's just set in his ways. He's been living parallel to the system his whole life. He doesn't see a way out of, the hopelessness that he's in. And I hate that for him. And I don't want anybody to feel that way. Not my daughter, not anybody who's within earshot of this podcast, not anybody who's my friend, not anybody who would listen, who's willing to listen. And not everybody's going through the same thing he went through, but there are people who feel the same hopelessness. And there are people who feel like drinking away their problems. And there are people who feel like their past fucked them, or somebody fucked them over, or something that happened to somebody who was supposed to be there for them fucked that person over, so that person didn't have love to give them. So now they're lonely because they didn't give they weren't given the fulfillment by their parents. And so now there's women chasing men for materialistic things. There's men chasing women for affection. There's people chasing after money. There's people chasing drugs just to not feel how they feel about the relationships that went bad. There are all these different, there are all these different reasons why people feel like shit out there. And there's a system that keeps it going and perpetuates it, like the school system giving me medication, taking away my individuality. I honestly believe that if I never went to school, I'd be smarter today. because honestly, the more time I spend with myself studying, I mean, I love reading. I love watching documentaries. I love searching for knowledge. I love seeking answers. I love looking for the truth. I can feel when I'm being told the truth today. I could feel when I'm being given bullshit by somebody who wants to perpetuate a system that's in line and in charge with the authority figures that are above us watching over us. I could feel the truth. And that's a skill. That's not something that you're given, that you were like born with. You can learn that. It's a skill that you learn, but it has to do with like having this like suspicion. Suspicion. Who's teaching you what? Why are they teaching you? What do they benefit from teaching that to you? And what is the objective? What can you learn if you learn the opposite? Or what can you learn if you had time to learn what you wanted to learn, right? So I heard actually I heard this study that there was a study done where they studied these 20 school children, and they studied their cognitive like what they understood about life when they were 5 years old. And they said these kids had they had genius level problem solving skills. They're they could understand problems, and they could solve them quick, fast, and easy. And then they send these kids to school, and these kids would come home from school, and they would test them every couple weeks. But they said that over time, these kids' cognitive skills were deteriorating because they were being taught how to follow a system. They weren't being taught how to use their brain power. And I really believe that every person is built. They're built with gifts. Everybody's born with gifts and the ability to have this genius way of thinking inside of them that's taken away from us by society. And they said that after what 6 or 7 years in public school, that that maybe one of them was so yeah, after a couple of years of school, and I stopped the recording and started again, that maybe one of the kids was still a genius. That they found out that kids are actually dumbed down by the school system. And one of the things that kind of set me off on this whole subject was for one, the ice cream sandwich, and another was a book called Dumbing Us Down by John Taylor Gatto. Teacher in the New York City school system, and he had won an award for teaching because I guess he produced some of the best students over the year that he was teaching. And at his acceptance speech for the award he won, he talked about some of his concerns that teaching these kids in the system. He raised awareness of some of these concerns. So John Taylor Gatto's Dumbing Us Down. Check that book out. It's a very important book. I always like to mention a book on each show, and for this show, I would say Taylor Gatto's Dumbing Us Down. And yeah, so back on the new age and the old age, right? Going back on a subject age. That new age is going to be started off. It's going to be something that stems from social media, technology, and the way the old age failed us. And I'm fairly certain that it's going to come from, the generation of kids who grew up in the 2010s and on. And some of it's going to be some of the people who are watching them, the adults, us. I'm 37 years old. It's going to be us in 10 years, because our parents are going to be too tired to function. Our parents are going to be in here in America, we put our parents in old folks' homes. But I don't believe in that, and that has to be a part of the new age way of living. We should look at our parents and our grandparents and the people who raised us with a sense of awe and love, and we shouldn't be too tired to take care of them. But I feel like that's a part of the way this system is set now to work. We put our older generations in homes, and we put them in rooms, and we set them aside, Basically, what we've done to the children in school, we're doing to the older people because we're too busy. We're overworked, we're tired, we're hungry, right? And that has to change, along with everything else that's going on around us. Um, we just kind of believe that things have always been like this. But if you look at other cultures, they make room for their elderly. They take care of their elderly. They're there in the home. They love their elderly people. They learn from them. The kids learn from them. I think it was the emerald. I think it was the emerald tablets. Somewhere in the emerald tablets, it said that the elderly should take care of the young, and the people who are in the mid age, the 20s through the late 30s and 40s. Those are the people who should raise the resources for the home, and definitely be there for for everybody. But the elderly themselves should be there to teach the young ones. That's what it used to be like. That was an ancient notion, right? That's what the emerald tablets say, as far as who should raise the kids and what should happen to the elderly. But we don't seem to have a place for these people anymore because capitalism and technology has kind of pushed the elderly out of the home. But why is it that just because the elderly can't work, they need to not be in the home? It's because it's hard for us to take care of them, right? And it shouldn't really be like that. But this is how it's been engineered. And it's just a part of something that we lost about ourselves, a part of our culture that we've lost, that we should fight for, that we should get back. Um, a lot of us live with this. What is it? I call it fatal fatism, where we think it's just our fate, and this is how we're going to live, and this is how things are going to end. Fatal fatism. It's fatal fatism. We think that since it's always been like that, that's how it's going to be until the end of time. And I really don't believe that that's true. Um, we're just too lazy to change anything. And it all started with that ice cream sandwich, and it's all kind of just coming out of me now in a bunch of different ways. And I'm not the best at podcasting. I'm not the best at putting all of my thoughts out there eloquently, but I'm also not going to take anybody's advice. And I might hear advice and I might, internalize it if I want to, but I'm not going to let anybody change me. I'm not going to let anybody tell me that my podcast sucks, so I should give up, or I should do it differently, or I should do this, or I should do that. The only thing I really know that I need to do is I need to get my finances together so that I can get a fucking studio so I can have more people around me. I have the cameras, I have the mics, I have the stands, I have the wiring, I have the technology. I just don't have the space because I don't have a fucking large room for multiple people to be in. But that's my own struggle, And what I'm saying is I'm not eloquent enough to say all of this in a way that everybody's going to take to. Not everybody's going to love it. Not everybody's going to sit here to the end of a 2-hour long podcast. But I'm not here for everybody, right? If I was here for everybody, everyone would be here for me. And I'm not in a room with anybody. I'm here for myself right now. I'm here to take care of this, to say what I am absolutely compelled by God to do. And I'm not a God person. I'm not a religious person. I say that in a way that people can understand. But something in my spirit is telling me to do this. Feel compelled to do this. And I've actually met a lot of people along the way that said that this is something that actually should be done. Probably not by me, and that's fine. I might not be the best person to say all this. I might not be the best person to even have a podcast. But when I go out, I'll go out for drinks, or I'll go out and talk with some people here or there in different places, and I'll tell them like, yeah, I'm doing a podcast. And they'll ask like, well, what is it about, or what's the idea of it? And for me, the idea is to raise awareness, to make people understand that there's hope in the world. That feeling, hopeless isn't how it's going to always be. That just because it's like that now doesn't mean that it's going to stay like that forever. That we can have good times, and we can have good moments and bad moments. But we used to say, oh, I had a bad day, or I've been having a bad week. I don't think that should be a thing anymore. I think that it should just be like something bad happened and I'm learning how to deal with it. So I had a bad moment this week, but it's turning into something positive for me. Every time something bad happens, it ends up turning into something positive. And I think that's what the doom scrolls should be about. The catalyst for change, right? The catalyst to change all the negative shit that we've all been through into something positive for each other. And that's why I when I talk to people, I tell them, You know, I suffered from suicidal idealization. I suffered from drug addiction. I was a heroin addict. I've been an alcoholic off and on throughout my whole life, and things felt hopeless for me. And it's gonna come again. There's gonna be time when, you know, I'm out of finances, or there's gonna be time when I feel like I'm at a bottom. There's gonna be a time when I feel like I'm at my lowest. There's gonna be another breakup. There's gonna be another dark moment in my life. This isn't the end of it. And I know that for a fact because it's been like that my whole life. I'm 37 years old. I've bounced back and I've gone through horrible shit and I've gotten better and I've gotten worse. And that's just how life is for everybody. That's how it's going to be for my child. That's how it's going to be for mostly everybody. That's the only real assurance that's the only thing that I'm actually sure of that is in my fate, is that there's going to be good times and there's going to be bad times. But there should always be a place to go, to get an inspiration. And when people ask what is your show about, I tell them it's about trying to help people get over their depression. It's about trying to help people get out of their drug addiction and find answers. There is hope for us, you know, the people who are in poverty, the people who are alone. You know, I've been lonely for over the last year since my really bad breakup in February, and I met somebody in February of this year, you know, completely out of my control. I didn't engineer this to happen. It just happened a year later because I'm sticking to my principles and my values and what's good for me and my spirit, and I'm obedient to my spirit, and everything's kind of falling into place. And I just want people to know that once you do that and you put in the work and you walk around feeling better about yourself, you start to attract things around you that were meant for you. But when you keep focusing on the negative, you create this void that sucks everything good into it, and you never get a chance to be with that. Like, you'll never get a chance to be happy if you keep staring into the void, the darkness and the hopelessness that life can be. And I don't think a lot of people can get to that place on their own. I was one of the people who were just so fortunate enough to have been like, I have a seeker's mindset. So when I was at the bottom of my heroin addiction, when my mom said she didn't want to speak to me anymore, when I lost my child to CPS, when my daughter's mother left me, when my girlfriend that I had afterwards broke up with me, when I was poor, when I was living in somebody's house and I couldn't pay the rent, when I was at my worst, I thought, well, I'm hopeless and I hate life and I don't like how things are going, but I don't want to give up. There's always some little seed of hope inside of me, and I want to water that seed. So where can I go to find the nutrients and the water for that seed? And for me, it was the internet. For me, it was YouTube. I found Derek Lambert. Derek Lambert is his name. He has a YouTube channel. Derek Lambert's YouTube channel is still there. For the first, I want to say, 6 months of his heroin recovery, he recorded everything. He recorded... And I actually have all the recordings of my heroin withdrawals. I have about 30 days worth of heroin withdrawals recordings on my YouTube, my original YouTube channel. If anybody wants to see those, I'll show you. It's really interesting to watch me crying and shaking and going through the heroin withdrawals. It's pretty interesting. I had a lot of views over there, but at some point I just thought I'm going to lay it to rest, and I'm not going to look back at it again. But I think eventually I'll go back over all those videos, maybe on the Doom Scrolls, and talk to people about the hopelessness that I was going through, and play some of the videos of me crying and asking for a better life and wondering what I could do. But I knew for a fact, but I didn't know how to word it, that there's people who are qualified and there's people who are certified. And being certified doesn't necessarily make you qualified. But when you're looking at heroin addiction and you're looking at hopelessness, there are people who could tell you, yeah, you can get out of it. I'll show you how. But are those people qualified to help you? Have they actually been there? Are those people who work the system for their whole life and they've always been on a good path, and maybe they've had some slight depression, maybe they felt like they weren't where they're supposed to? Because honestly, that's what the system actually, the system helps people get through it while they feel like they don't have they don't have a purpose. You could still get through the system and not have a purpose. You could still become, a PhD certified person, but not really know what your purpose in life is. And I believed that when I was going through my heroin withdrawals and my heroin addiction issues. And Derek Lambert was somebody who was like, look, I'm going to show you my withdrawals But you can go through withdrawals on your own. You don't have to go to a goddamn hospital. You don't have to take medication. You don't have to get methadone. Methadone is evil. If you do methadone, you're gonna do methadone for just as long as you did the heroin. You're gonna be addicted to the methadone, just to be even, just to be regular, and that's why I don't trust the pharmaceutical companies. And on certain days, the pharmaceutical companies could be right. I could take a medicine that's gonna heal my sore throat, that's gonna help me, get over certain diseases. But then you have these different aspects of the medical organizations that are just for profit groups. You have people that are selling pills that can help fight cancers for like $400 a pill. Meanwhile, you need over $300,000 worth of pills just in 1 year alone. There are groups like that, and then there are groups of doctors who just want to heal patients and are just out for the passion. There's people who are certified and qualified, but you have people who are working in in places that are going to help drug addicted people that have been through drug addiction. And those are the people to look at. And those are the people to stand in front of and question and ask questions to and learn from. I have a lot of friends who went to NA who became certified, addiction coaches, or I don't know what you call it exactly, but people who work in the agencies that help people who are addicted. Anyway, but Derek Lambert helped me get over my heroin addiction because I saw that, there's ways to do it without going through the hospital system. And at the time I had money, but not to give to a hospital that may or may not help me get off the drugs, right? But I trusted him. I was a seeker. I seek knowledge. I found it in him. And there's something beautiful about that. And that's what I want the doom scrolls to be about. When I tell people that that's my goal, when I tell people that my goal is to find help for people who are looking for the help, when I tell people that my goal is to give hope to the people who are hopeless but that want to find hope, you can't heal people who are not willing to be healed. And then I see people that I'm telling these people this is the goal for my show, and I see them like, that's a great idea, or I want to be on your show, or I want to talk about something, or that's awesome, that sounds cool. That inspires me to be myself, because in reality, that's my mission as a human being today. In reality, that's my purpose, to help somebody get out of addiction the way I got out of addiction, to help somebody get out of depression the way I got out of depression. And I've said it a number of times right now in the past few minutes, but it's because I'm trying to grasp like the idea of what I'm trying to say here is that's what this podcast is about. That's what it's always going to be about. That's what it's always ever been about. I'm tired of people going to the system for something that they need help with as an individual, because the system isn't going to change us as individuals. The system isn't going to help us. And maybe, the system could be right. What do they say? A broken clock is right twice a day. Yeah, the system could be correct sometimes. But I think if you look at life in a more individual, based way of helping people, you can help much more people out there. I also tend to think that a lot of these systems are meant to complement each other and help each other, right? So you look at the food organizations that are creating these terrible foods and covering the foods in preservatives, and you look at these pharmaceutical companies and these hospitals and these doctors and these corporations of doctors and people who make medicine. They're benefiting each other the same way government is benefiting corporations. It's all one big fucking racket, right? And where do we fit into this? We're just numbers. And I don't want to be a number. I don't want people to think that that's just how it's always been. And the same thing with the media corporations, feeding misinformation to all of these already miseducated people, feeding misinformation to a group of people who are already split in these divides. So all of these organizations are meant to complement each other, to profit off of basically the degradation of morals, the degradation of our health, the degradation of our values and our love and our family systems, and the emasculation of men, the emasculation of women, the destruction of the family unit. All of these things are happening, and we don't really notice that it's happening, but it's happening gradually, right? Like the frogs in the pot. We're being boiled so slowly that we don't notice we're gonna be boiled to death. Um, but when you start to raise awareness and you start to speak about it, everybody's too tired. Like I said, nobody wants to get into it, and it's all tied in. It's all tied in, and it really bothers me that not a lot of people can actually build the energy up in themselves to do something to change it. I want to fuck with the people who are the doers, right? I want to fuck with people who are the seekers. I want to fuck with people who question shit. I don't want to fuck with people who don't give a fuck. And I think that's like those are the kinds of people I want on the show. Those are the kinds of people that I'm trying to like call with my spirit, with my magnetism, whatever I have about me, whatever people see when they see me. I want to give off the energy of I want the people to help change things. I want the people that are the doers, the seekers, and the questioners. That's what I want to fuck with. That's what the Doom Scrolls is all about. And if you didn't know, now you know. You know, for a time I didn't know that that's what this was about. I just thought like I have something to say, and I want to get something out there. I feel compelled by God, and I say that again as a figure of speech. I feel compelled by God to do this. There are certain things that I feel compelled by God to do, like quit using drugs, like stay off of drugs, like break up with my ex the way I did it. There are certain things that I feel compelled I have to do on a daily basis, right? Like I'll go do karaoke. I feel like, maybe like me making people happy in the way that I know how to make people happy is important to other people. Like I want to sing. It raises my spirits. I'm going to do it. And that's how I live my life now. And I'm pretty sure I have a lot more to say, but I think I'm going to end it here because I take notes, I take notes. I write notes about everything I wanted to talk about. And it kind of went raw today without the notes, right? But typically I'll write a long list of notes. I'll do a bunch of studying. I'll watch a bunch of videos. I'll read a bunch of articles. And then I'll come here with the knowledge. But today I'm just going a little raw. It won't always be like that. And this just kind of sounds like a whatever. If you want to say this is a man's rant on a microphone, fuck it. Fine. Yeah, it is. Be honest. It is what it is. I'm not here to impress everybody exactly. I'm here to do what I'm compelled to do. And it's just to kind of bring a conversation to the table, right? To set that spark in people's mind. We don't need to live like this. We don't need to be depressed. We don't need to run to medicine. We don't need to run to the government. We don't need to run to these grocery stores. We don't need to run to these people who don't give a shit. We need to start thinking of ways to take care of ourselves. We need to start thinking of ways to stand outside of the system while we raise our children. We need to start thinking of ways of how are we going to eat tonight without eating this trash, And I know it's tough and I know it's hard, but at the end of it all, there's something that it does to your spirit when you're standing outside of a system and you're surviving and you're doing well. Not to say that I'm there, but to say that that's the goal of mine, and I know that that's the goal of a lot of human beings today. But my name's Christopher, and that was the Doom Scrolls. I hope you guys have a good day. If you've seen this episode, hit me up. If you want to talk about anything, or you want me to talk about something, or you want me to study something and just want to hear my point of view, or you want me to shut the fuck up, or you want me to delete this episode, if you want me to remove my channel, if you want me to smash my computer and break all my cameras, send me a message on YouTube. Add me on TikTok. I'll put the links at the end of the video up on the video itself, and I'll put the links on the bottom of the description here on YouTube of my channel, my TikTok, the guy who produced the music. His name is Ed Chronologic. And that's pretty much this episode for today. If you liked it, like I said, like, subscribe, send me an email. Where's my card? I have a card here. I'll just put my card up on the screen. If you liked it, send me an email. Hit me up. I'm Christopher. This was the Doom Scrolls. If you watched this whole episode, I don't know what to say, man. I feel sorry for you. I told you not to do it. I told you to turn it off at the beginning. Anyway, I have a lot of love for the people who are watching. I have a lot of love for the people who tell me that they enjoy what I have going on here. It's not perfect. This is like, the 9th episode? Maybe the 9th episode. I don't know exactly. I've taken some episodes down because the quality sucked. But we're going somewhere with this. I know we are. We're putting work into the production. We're putting work into finding content, studying these different things, and finding people to talk to. And I'm trying to educate myself so I don't come off as a complete asshole every time I do an episode, like tonight's episode. And I'm kidding. I don't really have this like negative self-talk. It's just a joke. Mostly all of my jokes are like hard to understand if they're jokes or not. Like the Doom Scrolls. The Doom Scrolls is a joke. I'll see you guys later. You were watching the Doom Scrolls. Special thanks to Ed Chronologic. Ed Chronologic Video Magazine on YouTube. It's one of my homeboys that made this music. He made the intro music. And special thanks to Lee, one of the friends who helped actually finance the show a little bit. And Corey, one of my boys. And somebody who supports all my bullshit. And all my friends who support my nonsense. Thank you guys for watching.